Greetings, I'm Pillar Nexus, and Gladiator today with Pillar Loves Tabletop games. Today's episode is just kind of out there for me because this is a game I used to play, and let's see how much of it I remember. Magic the Gathering. I just decided to start picking up cards again, but I'm gonna focus on one set. I figured, let's see how much of the game I remember. So the gist of the game is you start with there will be a format, but in general you'll have your deck, you'll have your starting life total, and if you can bring an opponent's life total down to 0, or make them draw a card when they have no cards to draw, that player loses. And if you're the only player left, then you win. There's they've got a whole lot of formats now, but there's going to be like three major ones. Either like draft slash sealed, where you can get away with a smaller size of deck, like 40 cards and 20 life. Uh, Regular constructed, which is 60 cards and 20 life. Or then there's the commander with legendary creature and 99 other cards and 40 life. And there's like 2 versus 2 formats and other stuff. But in general, you'll have your deck. And your deck's going to be effectively 2 things: lands and things you can play with them. As part of the setup for the game, you will shuffle your deck. You will allow your opponent the courtesy to cut the deck. And then you will draw 7 cards. And I think they keep messing around with the mulligan rules, so it's like the last mulligan rule I remember was like draw one less card. If you end up with a lot of spells and like no lands, maybe one if you were lucky, but you could draw one less card. Of course, that just increases your chance of getting screwed over. So I would imagine they've probably done something with the mulligan rules by now to keep things from getting too bad. Like draw 7 and then discard a card or put one on the bottom of your deck for every mulligan you've already done this game. Or they might do a free mulligan or something. Yeah. Shuffle, offer the cut, draw 7. There'll be a random first player, usually by flipping a coin, rolling a die, rock, paper, scissors, whatever. The player that goes first does not draw a card on their first turn. So, other than that, the turn order for a player is untap. All your tapped cards are now untapped. Oh, and by the way, be careful of using tap and untap as exact words for using and making available your cards again in your card game. I think Wizards owns that stuff. Yeah. Untap, upkeep, anything that triggers off of your upkeep step. And I think they're trying to do away with that too. And then draw a card. Again, first player going first does not draw a card. If you need to draw a card and you can't, you lose. Then you'll have your first main phase. This is where if you haven't, this is where you'll have your first opportunity to play a land on your turn. There'll be another main phase after combat, but ultimately you're limited to playing a single land on your turn. Lands come into play untapped unless they say otherwise. Tapping a land provides mana that can be used to play spells. So this provides 1 white mana, and that 1 white mana pays for the Broker's Initiate. I believe the spell goes to a stack, and then there's an opportunity to respond, and there's priority and all this other weirdness. But basically, you and your opponents have a chance to respond to a spell on a stack, either countering a spell or making it come under their control or something. If everybody passes to do anything in response, then the spell resolves. If it's a creature, it comes into play. Creatures that come into play cannot do any tap effects on their the turn they come in. They can't attack. The exception is if they have haste. There's going to be a lot of little abilities to learn and get used to, and if the set is very merciful, it'll have the reminder text in parentheses. Yeah. Creatures come into play, and then they can attack during combat phases. Let's see here. Spells like sorceries are played only on your turn. Things that require you to have a target, you have to have the valid target to do it when you cast the spell, or it can't be played. It's entirely possible for the target to disappear, in which case the spell either does as much as it can, or it just doesn't happen at all. Spells like Instants can be played on any turn, played as a response to something else. Let's see. Enchantments are played, and they're another thing that stays in play. They'll have their effects. Some enchantments are auras that will enchant creatures, artifacts, lands. Wherever, if anything happens to the creature or the land or thing that is enchanting, it gets discarded. When you discard cards or creatures die, they go to your graveyard. Graveyard is your discard pile, and there are things that can mess with it. Some things get treated even worse by getting removed from the game completely. Very few things can reach out to the removed from the game area. But anyway, there are things like artifacts that also go into play. Some artifacts are equipment, and they will attach to creatures. So, lands, creatures, sorceries, instants, enchantments, artifacts, and planeswalkers. Planeswalkers also go into play. They come into play with loyalty counters, and once per turn you can use one of their abilities. They'll have a way to gain loyalty counters through one of them. They'll have an ability that uses a little bit of loyalty, and then they'll have an ability that uses a massive chunk of it. Planeswalkers can be directly attacked the same way a player can, and doing so removes loyalty. A Planeswalker with 0 gets discarded. And if I remember correctly, Planeswalkers of a certain name, only one of them can be in play at a time. Again, it's been a while. I'm not sure if they've done anything with it. I just remember someone getting real uppity about 2 different versions of Chandra and wanting to have both of them in play. It's like, no, you can only have one Chandra. This is what you're limited to. There's already a Chandra in play, you can't do another one. And they insisted otherwise. Anyway. When you're done with your main phase, you go into combat. a start of combat effects, declare attackers. So let's say they were in play since the start of the turn, or they have haste and then played them this turn. Can declare them as an attacker. If my opponent has a blocker or an untapped creature, they can declare them as a blocker. And then damage happens, and then end of combat step. Creatures in combat will deal damage equal to their power to the opposing creature, and if the damage they take ever equals or exceeds their toughness, they die. The only way this creature is doing anything is if I use its ability to make it a 5/5 or play some other spell. And then after each of the parts of combat, start, attackers, blockers, damage. There's an opportunity to play spells, I think. So you declare your attackers, you do special stuff. They declare their blockers, and they can play spells to change that. Actually, I don't think any spells can be played when the damage is actually happening. I don't know. It's been a while. I'm trying to remember this the best I can. But after combat is the second main phase, and if you haven't played your land already, now's your opportunity to try to play one. If you haven't. And then, end of the turn, cleanup step, all leftover damage is cleared. And then you pass turn to the next player. It's possible to play the game with multiple players, which leads to some really interesting scenarios. In fact, there are some cards that only really get their value when you're in a multiplayer game. But yeah, it's just this back and forth of, untap, draw, play stuff, attack. Opponent goes, untap, draw, play stuff, attack, all that. Eventually someone's going to run out of life, run out of cards. It's entirely possible to make the game take forever. But nobody likes that. Unless they're a troll. There's no maximum to life either, so it's entirely possible for someone to just exceed their starting value. And aside from that, it's just figuring out what you want to do deck building wise. Like, what colors do you want to mess with? There's whites, blue, black, red, green, multicolor, no color. There's non-basic lands. Oh yeah, there's the other part of deck building is if it's not a basic land, you're limited to 4 copies of it. If you're playing Commander, you're limited to 1 copy instead. There's no limit on basic lands because that's the core of the game. You can build a 1-color deck. You can build all 5 colors. There's a really dumb idea I can't get out of my head of a Kamigawa deck that's this enchant land that turns into a legendary creature. And I keep thinking a deck of nothing but lands and the 1 enchantment. I don't know. There's a lot of silly stuff you can do with this game. It's probably part of why I still have some respect for the game after all these years. In previous video, I talked about Flux, and it's probably one of the games you want to study for game design. After you've got that game down, come to Magic. Check out Magic and see how it runs. There's just being able to kind of create these different factions and different approaches to how they operate. What happens when you try to make multicolor, multi-faction stuff? Keywords, how complex or simple are your cards going to be? You know, how about cards working together? There's just so many combinations in this game, and figuring them out is probably part of what keeps it going. People getting creative with formats. I remember Commander was just Elder Dragon Highlander way back when. To see it take off and actually get support by Wizards, it's kind of interesting. One of the other formats I like is called the Cube Draft. There's another format, Draft. So people will get their like booster packs, and there'll be some basic lands available as well. And you'll get your pack of cards. You'll take one. You'll pass the rest around. And you're trying to keep it to what you can manage in terms of number of colors. And then your deck minimum is 40, and you can potentially go higher if you dare. But with few cards to work with, you know your options are going to be limited. There's just sealed, where you just get the packs and you don't draft with anyone. But it's still going to be tricky to figure something out. The one format that I miss playing with people, is called Cube Draft. This massive collection of Magic cards, just from every set, every rarity, from the most common thing to the most obscure as hell card. And they'd be mixed up and made into like little 15 card packs, and people would draft that. And it would just be a wild ass time. And that's part of what I'm working on with trying to collect cards for this set. There's the silly unsets that they've also done. Unglued, Unhinged, Unstable, Infinity, which a lot of stuff it's just kind of a joke, but it's still playable Magic, and it's still fun. They've been doing all this Universes Beyond stuff, and I keep I keep hearing some people compare it to Fortnite, and I'm like, I would compare it more to Vice Sports, as the game that takes a ton of properties and mashes them all together. But anyway, what else does Magic have going for it? The lore. From all the way back to Yawgmoth and Urza to whatever there is about to happen with Lorwyn in the new set coming up. The flavor text to kind of give you some bits and pieces of what's going on in the story, or just some little side things that are happening in that little world, or just kind of funny things too. One of my personal favorites is a card called Goblin Offensive, and the flavor text is, "They certainly are." Yeah, there's a lot that you can find in the game. Whether it's enjoying the aesthetics in the story, to figuring out combinations, to just playing whatever you personally resonate with. This game's been going on for over 30 years, and it's it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to kill the game, honestly. For all the doomsaying and all that, um, it's going to take something I couldn't even guess to bring this to an end. So you know what? As long as the game's here, might as well have some fun with it. If you've never played Magic before, if you've never played any kind of collectible card game before, this isn't a bad one to start out with. There are some games that might be a little bit easier to start out with, like Pokemon, but there's that situation of people are buying it up for what? Trying to turn it around for money? It's like, but what about the game? That's one thing that kind of frustrates me is a lot of the modern card gaming discourse is like people are more focused on cards as a commodity to try to make some quick money off of. It's like, but what about the game? What happened to enjoying it for the game? You know, there's been so many card games over the years too. That was like, I really like the systems. I really just wish I could find people to play with. As well, a lot of games that end up using other IPs and just run out of material. A lot of games that have some interesting ideas and then botched execution. It's like, really? There's there's a lot in the card game world, and I'm just glad for Magic to just get it going. I'm not sure what I'm not sure where the card gaming world would be without it, but I don't. It's not the only game. I can't guarantee it's the best game, but it is a historically important game in tabletop gaming history, and that's why I recommend it. So yeah, Magic: The Gathering. Um, play with new cards, play with old cards, mix them all together for some weird timeline Frankenstein monster, and just have fun. Because ultimately, that's the point of these games: is have fun. Thank you very much for watching. Happy 30 something years to Magic. Happy 40th birthday to myself. And I will see you all next time.